There are never before seen Tasmanian tiger photos, and this is why I think it proves that they didn't go extinct in 1936. Alright everyone, how are we all doing? Welcome along back to the channel today, and we're talking about my favourite, the Tasmanian tiger, the Thylacine, because there's been some revelation, there's been some new evidence, new photos. 3 new photos have appeared out of an archive showing a dead Tasmanian tiger. Now before you get super excited, this isn't something that's recent. This didn't happen 3 years ago and it was photos of a dead one from then, but something later on I'm going to talk about may prove that these things did actually survive up until the 90s, maybe even the early 2000s. So quite simply, 3 new photos never before seen of the Tasmanian tiger have been unearthed from an archive in Australia. So a big shout out goes to those people who did manage to find these. So you can see in the photos we've pretty much got a Tasmanian tiger lying down on what appears to be a fold out table. 2 of the photos show the Tasmanian tiger on its sides, as you would imagine something sleeping or obviously dead, and then one of the photos shows the pouch of the Tasmanian tiger with one of its legs lifted to show this off. Now firstly, I think it's absolutely crazy that there are physical documents showing Tasmanian tigers still out there in the rest of the world that we probably haven't seen. Like, these 3 photos had been just archived physically for a long time until eventually in this last year they have been found, and credit to the people that found them. It goes to show you what may still be out there in terms of like evidence that we haven't seen, or pictures or videos that we still haven't seen. It's thought actually there's one video of the Tasmanian tiger that's still out there that we still don't know about. We think there is one, but we haven't seen it, and I think that's pretty crazy. Also, if you think about it, in the early 20th century people started to get cameras and they were taking photos and videos of the Tasmanian tiger. What if those people just had it for a private collection? There could be some photos or some old reel or something locked away in someone's attic or basement, and it's just collecting dust, and after all of this time we could be seeing this Tasmanian tiger or Thylacine walking around a zoo exhibit or somewhere else, and we just don't know about it, and I find that staggering. Now it's thought that these photos were taken in a Melbourne zoo, as apparently in the year that this photo was taken, which is I think believed to be 1912, 3 Tasmanian tigers died in that year in Melbourne, which is really quite interesting. Now I'm not sure if it is conclusive that it's from Melbourne, but all signs point to it being from Melbourne, these photos. Now let's talk about why I think this could push back the Thylacine extinction date to the 90s at least. And it's something I've mentioned on this channel before, and I've mentioned it in a podcast before, and I've spoken about it quite a lot, and that is Adamsfield in the 1990s. And could these photos here potentially prove that Adamsfield in the 1990s was a genuine thing? Now there are separate stories from Adamsfield in the 1990s from separate people who didn't know each other, and it's all really quite interesting. One fella, which is probably the most famous, is a fella called Rusty Morley. Now Rusty Morley is an interesting one because he's claimed to have seen about 5 or 6 Thylacine in his entire life, and it stopped around the 1990s, but he did see them in that decade. Now the story is quite confusing, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a little bit of the podcast that I recorded just here so you can understand what the story is to some extent. There are 2 separate accounts. The first one, hunters were out in Adamsfield, but they were searching for wallabies, trying to like shoot them and whatever. There's a rustle next to them. Right. An animal's been awoken, it's been startled, scared. It jumps up, tries to run away. One of the hunters gets scared, turns, shoots it. They look at the animal and they realise it's a Thylacine. They've gone, oh my god, we've just killed a Tasmanian tiger. Also, I should probably add, they did take some pictures of it. Now the second one is a fella called Rusty Morley. He took 3 Polaroids of a small Thylacine carcass he found while he was out in the bush that he claims died of natural causes. Those photos I don't think have ever come to light. Same with the hunters ones as well. And in 1991 he took a plaster cast next to the road of like what he thought was Thylacine prints. 1996 he tracked Thylacine around a lake, then took a plaster cast from the lakeside. 1992, and this is where the story gets interesting, a geezer by the name of Colin Coomber, who was a newspaper editor at the time, he's shown around 10 photos of an alleged dead Thylacine, which includes a bullet wound from an unknown Thylacine researcher who had duplicated the photos without the knowledge of hunters. So this person had seen his photos, duplicated them, and showed this newspaper reporter, Colin Coomber. There's a full shot of an animal lying on its right-hand side. You can see it's on like grass and whatever. And there's also a close-up side of its left side of its head with the mouth partially open. There's a close-up of the front foot. There's also a close-up of the rear feet and the ankle bone, because they've obviously got like a unique sort of ankle bone that's quite long. Close-up of the thick tail. There's a close-up of the entrance hole of where they shot it, and the exit hole as well. And there were a couple of other photos as well, but you can't remember what they were. But the two photos show a foot of the thylacine, and they're on the website. There's a photo A, there's a photo B. Both of them have been declared a museum specimen. Yeah. So not the actual photos of like from the hunters. However, in photo B of the foot of the thylacine, there's an actual thylacine's foot on top of it, which is a museum specimen. Underneath that, there's another picture, and it looks like a Polaroid, and it's another foot. That could be the real deal. That picture underneath, and they're using that foot of the museum specimen to compare the photo he's got to this foot here. Now, all credit here has to go to Where Light Meets Dark. The guy is fantastic at what he does, doing this like investigative journalism approach to certain things, especially with the Tasmanian tiger. Now, he believes, and I'm in agreement with this, that in the decade of the 90s, the Tasmanian tiger was still alive, and he's got a picture of a foot that could prove it. So he's posted this to Facebook, and I think personally, it's proof, it's evidence. Now, I totally get that the story is quite a hard one to follow along with, but if you go over to his website, you can read it in detail as much as you want, because he goes into detail. Here's the overlaid picture. So on the left, you can see a photo from a photo that could show a foot of a Tasmanian tiger. Now on the right is the photo of the foot of the new Tasmanian tiger photos that have come to light. And I'm not gonna lie to you, they look very, very similar. And I would go to say they're pretty much the same. Now, I don't mean the same animal as we've seen from these photos from the zoo that could have been in Adamsfield. I'm saying it's the same animal, Tasmanian tiger. And if the story that Where Lights Meet Dark talks about in Adamsfield is true, that would mean thylacine was still running around in Adamsfield and that surrounding region in the 1990s, and that may have even extended up until the early 2000s. And if that's the case, that they were running around in the 90s and it could have stretched to the 2000s, could they still be around here today? I'm unsure on that last part. I don't really think they're still running around here today in Tasmania in 2024. But in the 1990s, I would say yes. I don't think 1936 was the last time we saw a Tasmanian tiger. I think they stretched on further past that into the 90s. And I would say these photos that have just come out in the last week or so would go some way to proving that. What do you guys think in the comment section though? Do you think the Tasmanian tiger did get to the 90s? And do you think that these new photos sort of prove it from the Adamsfield collection? Anyway, that's going to be it from me. I hope you have a lovely day. New Tasmanian tiger stuff is always exciting, and I'm going to see you in the next video, probably talking about Africa and showing you some cool stuff there. All right, see you next time.